Hello everyone, this is Ron Williams with WebBuilder Templates, and this is part 2 of emulating a layout. This time we're going to use a Flexgrid. In our previous demo we did it using a layout grid. The layout that we're trying to emulate is from this website where we had pictures of these belts. We had 4 small ones on the left, a large one here, and as the browser is shrunk down at a certain point, the large picture flips to the left, the smaller ones flip to the right, and then when it gets to mobile, the large picture would pop to the top and our 4 small ones would be below. We did the same thing using a layout grid, and this is our result using the layout grid, as you can see, using watches. And as the screen shrunk, at a certain point it flipped to the left, and then in mobile it flipped, the large picture flipped to the top, and we had our 4 pictures below. So we're going to recreate this using a flex grid. So let's get started. Let's first of all insert our flex grid. And the one thing that we have to keep in mind when we do a flex grid is, let's open the properties here. This is the standard layout for a flex grid when you first insert it. And what we want to do is we're going to want to take this and basically create our layout similar to our target layout. The thing that you have to look at here is, is this fills the entire screen. As you notice, this big picture fills essentially half, the right half of the screen. These other pictures fill in the other half. So you can see there's essentially 2 columns here, and this one actually takes up another 2 columns. However, we're not going to make a 4 column. What we really want is 3 columns. This is 1 column, this is 1 column, and this is technically 1 column, even though it's twice as wide. That's the great thing about FlexGrid is you can, in FlexGrid, you can actually set the size of each column, unlike a layout grid. In FlexGrid, we can make columns different widths. They're not all the same width as in a layout grid. So what we're looking at here is how many columns do we have? And we really have 3. So what we're going to do is first of all we're going to go ahead and change our column from 4 down to 3. We also only have, if we look at our demo, we only have 2 rows, 1 row here and 1 row here. So we just need 2 rows. So let's go ahead and get rid of this footer. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that, and then we're going to change our rows to 2. So now we have our 3 columns, 2 rows. And let's go ahead and name our sections. So each picture, each cell, each cell should have a unique name for it. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do in this case, is give each section its own name. So let's start. So this first box, it takes up 3 columns. So what we need to do is we need to change the column width. So this is just the first one here. We're going to name it, take off that. Let's call it Watch 1. In this column, we're going to call it Watch 2. Here, we'll call this one Watch 3. And I would tell you to give them some somewhat descriptive names. I only need it in 1 column. And then this one here is our big watch. So we're just going to give it a unique name. And I want it to extend into this row. So it starts row 1. We want it to end in row 2. So now if we put this here and bring up our picture of our site, we can kind of see that we have the setup. Watch 1, watch 2 is here, watch 3, watch 4, and then this big column here, this particular one is big watch. It takes up both rows and this whole side. Now, what we want to do is we want to make this equal. We want, essentially, this is taking up 25%, 25%, and this is taking up 50%, which gives us 100% width. There's two options we could use. What we want to do here is in our width columns, we could use FRs, or we could use percentages. Okay. In this case, I'm going to stick with the FRs. What that basically means is this column is going to take up whatever available space there is. Well, if we set them to 1, 1, 1, that's pretty much equal. It's like saying 33%, 33%, 33%. Except this one here is twice as wide, so we want to go ahead and change it and make it 2FR. Okay. Let's go back in there. The other thing too is our rows. This one's set to auto. I need to set this one to auto as well. So we'll come down here and set that to auto. All right. So I've got my setup. Auto is going to be as high as it needs. The contents will dictate how high this column or row is going to be. I don't want it fixed. I want it to be fluid. And we've got it 1FR, 1FR, and 2FR. So that means essentially this is going to take up half the screen, and each one of these will take up 25%. All right. So now in our Flexgrid, let's go ahead and start putting in our content. Now I've already copied it down here below, so I'm just going to quickly put this in here. Just save some time. So that we don't just copying and pasting in the pictures and the text from our previous example. Okay, so then we now have our initial layout. So the first thing obviously we need to go in here and check is each grid is the actual layout within each cell. As you can see, this first one is defaulted to where the horizontals to the left, verticals to the middle. Well, what I want is I want everything centered horizontally that's in here. And I'm just going to put everything towards the top. So let's just change everything to horizontal centers, and just everything goes to the top. And we'll do that the same here. This is already centered. We'll set that to the top. And these little boxes indicate the layout. See, right now it's set to horizontal left and to the top. So it's up, these two boxes are in the upper left corner. As soon as I hit center here, that moves them to the center. This one here is just looking at here, I can tell is left center. Let's go center, top. And then the last one here is already centered, but we want that to the top. So now everything is the same in every grid. Okay. As you notice, these didn't change, but this did. This originally was centered, and it pushed everything to the top, and everything is good and centered, which is what we want. Alright, so now the next thing what we need to do is put some spacing in between our pictures. We want to put some width columns and rows. So the easiest thing to do here is for the whole entire grid, we're just going to put a 20 column gap. That'll put a 20 pixel column gap between everything. And then I'm going to put a row gap. So I want to put, in this case, I think I'm going to do about 60. Let's go ahead and hit OK. As you can see, we've now got a 20 column gap between everything. And then here I've got a row. I put 60 because I wanted some space in between the text and the top of the picture. Don't need There is nothing over here obviously because it takes up both rows, so it only affects these over here. So if we take a look at that, if we just preview what we have, that's pretty darn close. We've got our layout the way we want it. Just got to do some tweaking. So let's go ahead and go back to our page here. All right, so first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some padding to our layout grid. So right click on the layout grid, or the flex grid, excuse me, and I'm just going to go ahead and add some top padding here just to get it from the top of the page, and I always do the bottom. And then I'm also going to add some left padding. As you can see over here, we have no padding against the browser window in our pictures. So I'd like to add, I think I'm just going to add 15 there. So now we have some padding here between the browser window, same over here, and then I've got some padding from the top of the browser window up here that I added to the flex grid. Alright, so that makes it look a little bit neater and fits a little bit nicer. Alright, so let's preview that again real quick. Slight difference, as you can see it's a little off the top here, so we have some top spacing. You won't notice this on the side as much until the screen squishes down, but it looks better, and we have some nice spacing between here, so we're good. So let's quickly make our change. So if we add our breakpoint, in our previous example I had determined 990 was what I wanted to use based off the original page that we're emulating, and then I did a mobile of 360. Okay, let's go to our 990 layout. Now at this point, this is where we would want to have everything flipped. So remember, in our original site that we're trying to emulate, at the 990 point, this flips to the left. It was originally here on the right, and everything just kind of flips horizontal. That's what we want to emulate here. It's very simple to do. All we have to do is click on our Flexgrid, open up the... So what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to move Big Watch over here, and we want to move these over one column. So let's do that. All right. So what I typically do is I need some space to work with here. So I'm going to increase my rows, put some blank rows in here. I'm going to take this right here and highlight it, right click it. I'm going to move it down, move it down. I'm going to move this left all the way over to the left. Then I'll highlight this one, move right, right, move right, select it, right click, move right, and then I'm going to move up, and then I'll get rid of those extra columns or rows that I don't want. So now I essentially have moved Big Watch from row here, column 3 over to column 1, and I moved all these over one. The other thing we have to keep in mind is we have to change our widths of our columns. Remember, this was 2FR, these were 1, so we just need to correct those and make this column 1 now 2. So we've moved it 2, 1, 1. Hit OK. As you can see, everything has flipped the way it should be. Okay. If we go back to our default view, this is our default layout. We've now successfully flipped that. And then finally, in our mobile, keep in mind when this got down to mobile, this big image here flips to the top, and then these still stay in 2 columns below it. So we're going to keep it that way. So all we have to do is go over here, So what we want to do is big watch is right here still. So let's add, we're going to have to add some rows now. So let's add some rows. We need, how many rows do we need to add? Well, big watch needs at least 2 rows, and then these need 2, 1 for each. So we need to add at least 4 more rows. All right. No, excuse me. We don't, just 2 more rows. All right. So what we want to do here is we've added our 2 rows. We are going to go ahead and move watch 3 down. Oops. Move it down. We're going to go ahead and move watch 1 down. Do the same thing with watch 4. Okay. Now we want to move big watch to the left. All right. Now we still need 2 columns because remember, in our mobile, this is taking up a column, this is taking up a column. So that's what we have here. We've got watch 1. We got these in 2 columns. However, big watch obviously needs to fill in both columns widthwise. So right now it's only in 1 column. So what we need to do is extend this to end at column 2. All right. So we have this covering both columns. We don't need this 3rd column anymore. So we can now bring this down to 2 columns total. Both of these columns are set to 1 FR, which is perfect. We'll just leave that. We want it equal columns. Everything is set to auto. Let's hit OK. And as you can see, we have the big watch taking up both columns widthwise, and then each of these have their own column, just like we want. Take a look here. We go from the 990 breakpoint down to the mobile. That's how simple it is. Let's go ahead and preview it and see what our results are. As you can see, we start row just the way we want. At the 990 breakpoint, this should flip sides horizontally, which it does. And then as soon as we get below that, hit the 360, we've got our big watch on top and our 2 columns of the watches below. So we get exactly the same result as we do with the straps. And that's it. That's how easy Flexgrid can be. Once you set up these columns the way you want, in each breakpoint you simply go and maneuver them, change them to whatever you need by moving the blocks around. Appreciate you watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks.